Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're going to have a discussion about The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, 1948, when it was written. And it's really important that you have read this already. Please do not watch this if you haven't read it, because you're going to learn more, and the idea is to learn more if you read this first and read the questions before you read the story. So first we're going to take a look at the name, The Lottery. What does that tell you right there? You want to always look at the title of a story because that can say a lot. And in this particular story, it says a lot because what does it make you think of right away? At least it makes me think of winning money, right? Or winning something really good. And then we want to look at how the beginning was set out. The morning of June 27th, clear, sunny, warm, full summer day, flowers blossoming profusely, grass is green. She's drawing a picture with words, which is exactly what you want to do when you write something. You want the people who are reading to feel exactly where they are. And they talk about the village and talk about how this would be just takes less than 2 hours. So they would start at 10 o'clock in the morning and then they could go home and have dinner. So whatever is going on here, we're set up in the beginning to have this incredible picture. And as we go along, everything seems really, really normal. It seems like there's nothing wrong. This is a great little town, bunch of people getting together. They're talking about doing dishes and cooking and everything else. The kids are playing in the background. And then, of course, we find out that it's not what we think it is. And the lottery is not something great. It's something pretty bad. Another good thing to pay attention to in a story is what kind of objects are in the story. Like for this one, there's a black box. And it talks about how old it is. And we also see that there's really important people at this thing. So it's not just a community thing, but the head people in the community are there, calling people's names and everything. We also want to pay attention to color, the color of things. How is it making us feel? Like at the beginning, we're talking sunny, warm flowers. And then we talk about a black wooden box, plain, simple, old. So there's reasons for that an author might use certain colors to make you feel a certain way or to identify something about an object. Does that make sense? Now, we're going to go into this a lot more throughout this course, but this is just the beginning time that we've really taken a story apart. But that's how much we want to be in detail when we take a story apart. There's all kinds of hidden little puzzles all along. And we take a look at Old Man Warner. Now, what does he represent within the community? He represents the oldest man that doesn't seem to like what the young folks is saying, because he says, "Pack of crazy fools. Listen to the young folks. Nothing's good enough for them. Next thing you know, they'll be wanting to go back to the living in caves and nobody work anymore. Live that way for a while. Used to be a saying about the lottery in June. Corn be heavy soon. First thing you know, we'd all be eating stewed chickweed and acorns. There's always been a lottery. Bad enough to see young Joe Summers up there joking with everybody." So we know by this that this has been around for a long, long time. And they don't really mention anything in this how it got started. And the only thing that we see that maybe lottery in June, corn be heavy soon. So whatever it was, maybe the lottery started because they wanted to have good crops, meaning good money is coming up. One of the questions asks you, and before you read, you want to talk about tradition and ritual and what they were and what are the differences between them. And obviously, we all know that we have a tradition. There's Christmas holiday traditions, there's Hanukkah holiday traditions, there's traditions in each individual family, that one family would do every single year. It might be for Easter or something, or for birthdays. And then we want to look at um, the fact that there are rituals. And it says in here, although the villagers had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remember to use stones. So over time, and we know this has been a long time that they've been doing this, um, they still remember part of the ritual within the tradition. And this is a tradition. And one of the things we want to talk about in this particular story, the tradition does not seem to be great. It seems to be a very, very bad thing. They are killing someone. Not only are they killing someone that they're close to in their own community, I mean, these people are neighbors and everything, but it's not a quick thing. That person is being stoned to death by everybody, including their own children and other family members. So they're teaching and showing their children, hey, this is what they do before they even know what's going on. They're very young children there. So they're not going to be able to understand, okay, is this right? Is this wrong? It's just something they do. And of course, later on, you grow up and you think about it, okay, I don't think that's a great idea. And of course, there's somebody there that is turning around and saying, like Old Man Warner is saying, oh my gosh, we have to keep doing this. We've always done this. This is the way it is. It's not the way it is. And how do we relate this to some of the things that have gone on in our history? Now, this was written at the end of World War II, like in 1948. But since then, think about this. We have had all kinds of things in our history when the African Americans started to become more independent in our country. I mean, before that, they were told, in the back of a bus, you have to drink from a different water fountain. And of course, people grew up with that. So they thought that was normal. That was not normal. It was not good. I don't know that I would call that a tradition, but it was something that was done in this country that is absolutely not acceptable, and was also done in other countries. There are still slaves in other countries. It was a book recently written about a girl that came out of, I think it was in Egypt, but I'm not sure, somewhere in the Middle East, and her parents sent her to the States as, I think she was about 11, somewhere like 11 or 13, something like that. And it's normal there. She said it's normal to be sent away to somebody else. And basically she was there as a slave. And this is recently, this is in the last 10 years. But she said it's normal in her community that the young girls were sent away to rich families and to go and work off their family's debt, or just because that was what they do. That's what you're supposed to do. And she barely got to talk to her parents, and her parents said, just keep going, just keep doing what you're doing. And while the rest of the wealthy family was, playing games and having birthday parties, This young girl was sleeping in a garage and not having very much to eat, not allowed to, have fun with the other children. Now, we know that that is not the right way to do what we believe in the United States of America, in North America. That doesn't happen. And it is wrong, in my mind, without question. But there are people in other countries believe that that's okay. Now let's take another example here. Let's take a look at the violence in this particular story. Now, I grew up in the Chicago area, and on the south side of Chicago, it has been known and is still known there's violence all over the place. There's news stories about shootings happening even at a gender party where 2 children were shot. Now, they were talking about that it was a gang retaliation. And some of the people in the gangs are younger people, and they're being brought up in this environment. So what is wrong to many people may not be taught as wrong within that group. And so they become accustomed to it and used to it and say, yeah, it's okay, just like in the story. Oh, yeah, it's okay to stone our mother. It's okay to stone my wife. It's okay. This is all fine because this is what we've always done. And when you see things in Chicago and gangs that, have been around a long time and people get initiated, maybe it's a normalcy that we should not have because poverty tends to bring that out. So you can take a lot of things and compare it to this story after it was written in 1948. So yes, there might be a lot of influence from World War II in this story. And like another person says when she's discussing this, we've included another video on this page that you can take a look at. In World War II, there was a bunch of bad things happening, but she also, as an author, moved to a small town, and we all know that small towns, they can be very cliquish sometimes, and they don't want to let new people or new ideas come in to their community. They do what they're used to, what's familiar, what's safe to them. And anybody new or anything new or new ideas coming in, it becomes scary, which is why Old Man Warner in this story doesn't want to see any changes. He wants everything to stay the same because that's familiar to him. And hopefully, if this story were to continue, they would eventually go on and find out this is wrong and throw out all the bad rituals and traditions and start over and do something good, like maybe a lottery where you win lots of money and you can buy yourself a house instead of stoning your mother or your sister or your neighbor. All these things are important when you're tearing apart a story because what it looks like, if somebody were to say, okay, what's this story about? Well, it's about a town and they go and stone, they pick one person to stone every year. But that's not really what it's about. And you have to look underneath. It's about a community that has decided to keep doing something and they don't even know why. It questions what kind of decisions humanity makes. And look at this too. Here's something else. The lack of information. All these people are very busy. They were going about their regular everyday lives, and we know this because we work hard. All of us work very hard. We come home, we make dinner, we put the kids to bed. There's no time to go and look into politics and see what's going on and, try to change something. Some of us are able to do it, but many of us are not. We're just too tired. We're too involved in our own lives. And so we don't do the research that gives us information behind the scenes, just like in this story. They don't know even why they're doing this. This poor woman is getting stoned. They know her and they don't even know why. And nobody seems to ask those questions. And so maybe one of the things about this story is, why isn't anybody saying anything? Why isn't anybody stopping? I mean, we're seeing a little bit that there's people asking some questions, but they're doing it, very low, quietly, whispering, so nobody will hear, because they don't want anybody to get upset about some new idea they might have. But finding out information, finding out why, taking the time, maybe she's saying, we don't take the time and we don't have the time and we're too tired and busying ourselves with our regular everyday lives, that when we see things that are wrong in front of us, we're just too tired to make the change. Could that be a possibility? Anyway, you might have a lot of ideas on your own, and feel free to write about them. Absolutely write about them. But this is the first kind of thing that we're going to do to tear something apart. And after this, we're going to be reading the full book, Animal Farm, which some students read in middle school, but there are books and books and books and papers written about Animal Farm. It is a lot more in depth than you think. And just by looking at this story and seeing how we tore it apart, you can't even imagine compared to the next one. You could take like a full year's course and not even finish tearing apart Animal Farm. So there's a lot of depth to writing. Just like there's a lot of depth in art. When you look at a picture and maybe you see on the surface it's a picture of a woman, but then you look deeper and you see the colors and the way the woman is positioned and the way her face is and the frown on her face and how many wrinkles are on her face and what does that tell you? And that's the same thing about writing. You want to delve into the writing. It's not just what's on the surface. It's what's on, and it's the message that the author is trying to give you. And even in the original message, maybe that the author was trying to give you, it's so much more. And that's why the readers are so important, because we all have our own ideas. And this is the kind of thing you need to do when you're thinking about doing a piece of writing or you're reading something in a GED test. You want to look at what's on the surface, but you want to look what's underneath. And you guys are doing great. Phenomenal. Yay. It's fantastic doing this stuff. Isn't it cool? It's like figuring out a puzzle. It's just so cool. Okay, we'll see ya next recording. Thank you.